when you don't win, right? When your talent outweighs your problem or problems, you typically lose that job you're in, right? Or you lose whatever relationship you're in, or you lose something is on the line. You're going to lose that, right? When when your talent outweighs your problems, you typically keep your job, right? I mean, there's legitimate concern at Georgia for things that are happening there. They're two-time champions, right?
Right.
You get a little bit of break. So when you win one game last year, 1-11 last season. Okay, they won the first game of the year, lost 11 in a row after that. They won 3 games the previous year. So when you start losing, you don't get leeway at all, especially with a brand new president who has no association with you at all. They have a new president from Oregon, and this was going to be the end result. LaVar, look, hazing is a broad term, right, for a lot of things that happen in a building. And for the most part, hazing, quote unquote, hazing, is something that's done as a bonding between players on the team, right? And for the most part, it's harmless. Yeah, it might be expensive every now and then to pay for a dinner. Yeah, it might not be nice for an older player to yell at you to go do something for them. Back in the day, we saw at Hard Knocks. They used to tie you to a pole, right, and pour water on you. Okay,
tape you up.
Yeah, it's not fun for that hour you're on the pole, but in the end, it's mostly harmless, right? And in the end, it's mostly a bonding experience because I went through it. And then the next guy went through it, and the next guy went through it, and it feels like a common thing we've all done together, and we're all part of the team. And especially in training camp, it's a long training camp. You're going to have a little bit of fun, right? Yep. And so, for the most part, things that you people listening to this might think is a little bit, I don't know if I'd want to do that in my job. We do it in our job, and everything's fine. It's a bonding experience, and no problems with it. So when I hear some of the stories that were happening in Northwestern, it does raise alarm bells because, LaVar, that's stuff that I played in one college, obviously. So did you. Mm-hmm. I played on 6 NFL teams. Okay, now at the end of my time in 2016, there weren't as much quote unquote hazing things that happened compared to when I was younger. But like the Northwestern story went a little bit too far, right? Like that's things you're like, oh, really? They're doing that in that locker room?
Yeah.
And then the question is, well, how much did Coach know? Okay. And the reports are that there was a whiteboard in the locker room listing out these hazing punishments, which is odd. I don't know why that was necessary.
I mean, they do that whole "we're smart" thing. So
I guess, but so Coach had to know, right? And the question
if there's
is
a whiteboard in the middle of the locker room, the coach got to know.
The question is, like, how much does a coach know in a program? He's been there since 2006, okay? He runs that entire building, all right? He should know what's happening in his locker room to this extent. This is something that's happening year after year. He's going to know about it. He just is, okay? It's happening in his own locker room with his own players. He's going to know about it. And I know that he claims he doesn't know about it. Maybe there's no evidence he actually did know about it because obviously that'd be hard to kind of prove. But this was going to happen once this whole story came out, right? The student newspaper there did a good job of all this. The one question I do have, LaVar, that I think is worth asking, we don't have an answer for it, is why did this wait to come out till now? Was it the losing? Were people tired of the message there? Were people over the coach and just kind of this is the way they're lashing out at him? Because he's been there since 2006. I don't think the hazing started yesterday. So why now do these reports come out? It doesn't invalidate the reports, doesn't make them any less worse. But it's a long time to coach, and then now it comes out that there's been this hazing incident over year after year. There's some issues with hairstyles in the locker room. That's dating back to 2009, I believe, that report. So that's a question I think it's valid. Is why now?
I think it's a valid question. I think it's a dangerous move. Again, 1-win team last year, 3-win team the year before, but nonetheless, you have a team.
Yeah,
you have a team, and here's what I'm thinking. All right, in these scenarios, it is a very difficult. And listen, they're in the Big Ten, so I know they're aware of what took place at Penn State. I get that schools are going to be very, very stern, very stringent, very, very quick to handle things a certain type of way because you do not want to lose the reputation of your school. You do not want to lose the mystique, the trust, the cachet, whatever you know people may want to call it. You don't want to lose that. And Penn State, we did lose that. Penn State, we were fighting for so long just to be normal after everything that took place. And listen, by I guess measurement, what took place at Penn State way worse. But with that being said, these are allegations, these are claims that have sexual assault connected to them. And so to me, and I'm not a lawyer and I'm not into the legal deal, I just, as a novice, know what some of that means, some of the terminology means. And my whole thing is, when this came about, learning about it, I would be curious to know when was the first, do we know when the investigation started, Lee? That would be the first thing that I would be wanting to know, because depending on when that investigation took place, then now you have to start figuring out who's going to be the coach of your team. Because here's my thing. The one conclusion that I kind of came to with Joe and with Jerry, and I'll say the same exact thing as it applies to Pat Fitzgerald in this scenario, is as a father, which a head coach is a father. If you want to go personal, if you want to go business, the president, CEO of the company is the head of that company. You don't get a free pass for not knowing. You don't like, as a father, if my kids are in the house doing things that they shouldn't be doing, I don't get to say, oh, well, I didn't know. I don't get to do that. I don't get that free pass. Lee, what you got?
The anonymous complaint came in late November, early December last year, and the investigation was publicly disclosed January of this year.
Okay, that's ample amount of time to come up with an investigation conclusion before now. Have us a person ready to go that's going to coach this team, and give these kids the opportunity to measure and weigh out and gauge what they want to do. I find this to be a very unprofessional way of handling it. As it appears, I think that they've put this group of young men that are in that locker room, at least the ones that are deserving of a fair opportunity to have their scholastic sports career go a certain type of way at Northwestern. I believe they've been compromised. And it appears to me, it kind of comes across to me as more of agenda driven than actually what took place itself.
Well, LaVar, recall, they gave him a 2-week suspension on Friday.
Correct.
So now I do wonder how much of this came from, again, I mentioned it before, the president just got there in August. Okay, he was from Oregon.
Okay,
he got
and that's fair.
August.
That's fair.
So maybe there was okay, what's I don't know this coach. I'm gonna go off what the law firm that we hired said. But to your point though about the timing of this, they tried to bury this, right? Because they released the news on a Friday in sort of a dead time in the calendar, right? When we're not really, a lot of us are on vacation. We're not paying attention to as much news. We're maybe switching between new social media platforms at the moment. But it was a dead time. They gave him a 2-week suspension right now in college football. Coaches are on vacation. They can't recruit. Now they can call and text, I believe, but they can't have visitors on campus. It is a dead time in the sport right now.
Yeah.
And for them to give him the 2-week suspension during the dead time of the year, I think really angered a lot of people. And that kind of led to more information coming out in the student newspaper. If they had done it differently, we're suspending him for 2 weeks, a month
during the season. Right.
Maybe we don't get to this point. I'm not saying this is the wrong decision, but we might get to a different point if it's taken more seriously. Because there's nothing that Northwestern got between now and yesterday that's any different. It's not like they got any new information. Excuse me, I take that back. From the law firm they hired, they got new information, I think, from the student newspaper that was interviewing some of these players. So that's new. The law firm who they hired to do this investigation didn't get anything new over the weekend.
Right.
And so, I guess the question is, why was this all not disclosed the first time? Now, I guess the law firm is just focusing on what happened in the locker room recently, not a long time ago. But they tried to not give him a punishment, essentially, right? And what has always surprised me about these big companies, right? Northwestern, in the end, is
a big company.
Yep. They butcher these all the time, man. Like they mess for having like PR firms and your own PR people, for having your own lawyers. You're having obviously many people that are in the building that have had long careers. In Northwestern, any company, man, they butcher these all the time. And to your point, like now you enter a season where, look, there might be a lot of players on the team that like Pat Fitzgerald that didn't really think anything was wrong, which is a problem if what was happening was happening. I questioned some of the players there for allowing this to happen. LaVar, I don't know if that would have happened on teams I played on. Some of the things that like we would have been like, come on, stop, right? Like we're not doing those. We're not hazing kids that way. So you have a new coach now before the season starts.
Is it in a room? And if it's in a room,
it has to.
He's just as much a part of the situation as the head coach, right? I mean, you haven't
rectified my thought,
it,
right? Is like you have to. Ideally, when a coach is fired right now, you hire from within. I mean, you can't hire someone. You basically, if you hire a coach now, let's say it's Jim Leonard, right, former Wisconsin defensive coordinator that's been linked to the job very quickly. He can't do anything for the season right now. You're basically just hiring someone to be a babysitter for 6 months.
Correct.
Because training camp schedule's already planned.
It's
right?
already
planned.
It's like 2-3 weeks out.
They've already game planned for the first 3 or 4 games. Everything's set in motion. You basically are hiring a babysitter for 6 months. Now, of course, they can implement some things, I guess, but it's going to be like your first team meeting is going to be the day of training camp. Like the first time you meet your team. So you're right though. The interim thing, if you're firing him because he knew, someone in the building probably also knew. I would even argue that the assistants probably knew
before the head coach.
Before the head coach.
And that's their job.
Yeah.
That's their job to know what's going on.
So
more importantly, or most specifically, probably your weight trainers, your weight room guys.
The
strength coaches.
The strength coaches and the equipment guys.
And the equipment guys. Yeah. Strength and equipment. Those are the two that should have known. And if you're, we're up on a break, but this one is kind of, to me, at this point, knowing what has happened in the past, how big of an impact Penn State had on what happens in locker rooms in all of sports, all of college sports, even with what happened with Michigan State with the gymnasts. Yeah. To me, you just cannot be a staff that just allows your players to run amok in the locker room, in the facilities. You just can't do it. You can't let them do it I said this yesterday. You can't let them do it in the dorm rooms. You can't let them do it in the team apartments. If anything, the only place that would seem to make sense where something like this could happen and you not know about it is in their own personal digs. If they have an apartment off campus, if they're upperclassmen, stuff like that. If inappropriate things are happening in a place that is not governed by the school, then you have a conversation. But if it's in your locker room, if it's in anything if it's in a team facility, if it's in a school facility, the school representatives should know. They should know. And there is no excuse to say, I didn't know anymore. That doesn't exist anymore. And that's just my take on it.